Okay, so let's talk about the dev water cooler, which they called Building Healthy Gameplay. Let's just have a little chat about that, shall we?
Yes, please.
Yes, so in this water cooler that Blizzard have released, they've basically said that healers are too powerful at the moment, which is creating bursty healing. Because the healers are so powerful, they're having to up the boss damage in order to sort of counteract that, which is creating this healing that's just heavily based on reaction times. You know, it like drops down, then you healers are having to like whack it back up instantly.
We have the power.
Yes, and so they're
apparently
yes, too much of it. So they're trying to just whack it. They're saying that in Warlords, the basic outline of this blog is saying that they're going to hit healers pretty hard.
They're being stern with us.
Yes, but with that, they're going to decrease the damage as well. So it becomes more of a game of sort of gradually trying to get it back to full health instead of instantly, and remaining at full, keeping players at full health. And so people have gone a bit mental.
Yeah, it's gone a bit crazy, hasn't it?
Yeah, because
quite scary.
Yeah, I mean, usually only one class gets nerfed sometimes, but it's obviously going to have a big reaction when every class gets nerfed in the healer range. So we're just going to talk. They've nerfed them in like a variety of ways that they think is going to make the gameplay better. So we'll just go through a few of those. So first of all, like this bursty gameplay. I mean, you're a healer. Like, what do you think of that sort of style of healing in general? You know, healing people back up so quickly.
Well, I'm a druid healer, a resto druid, so so we have a lot of heals over time. So I don't know if we're as bursty as other players.
Yeah. So you're sort of left out there.
Yeah, so in a way we are, because I don't know, maybe they want it to be more like druid healing, where you know you're gradually trying to get people up rather than you know, straight up back up to full health.
Well, it just sort of puts your class back into play a bit more, though.
Yeah, definitely, because at the moment people are just being able to get people straight up to 100% health, whereas we're still trying to, you know, our heals are still on there, but they're not really doing anything, so we're over healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would put us back into play, but it's still quite scary, this whole blog. There's a lot of stuff in there as well, and it's a bit confusing as to what spells we're actually going to be able to use, which aren't going to affect our mana pools. But we're going to talk about more about that. But
as it goes on,
first reaction is it's very scary.
Yeah, I think with the bursty thing, one thing people have said specifically, sort of their concerns with that burst sort of being removed, is that it takes out that element of gameplay where you have these sort of reaction times. You know, a skilled player would be able to see that reaction time and they'd be ready with the exact spell that can get it back to full, and it removes that element of skill. So there's been some concerns over that, but Blizzard have said to that, even though that's been taken out, they're replacing this element of reaction time with decision making. They want it to be more about which spells are you going to use that are going to be most mana efficient in that situation, and when should you use those big heals and things.
Yeah, it's two different skill sets, isn't it? They're both equally as good.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a player that thinks about their spells and thinks about long term, and you've got another person who's really quick to, you know, just get on their spells and get the health straight up, but it might not be as mana efficient. And I think they want people to really be thinking about how they're playing their characters. So it's going to be just a different way of playing, isn't it? So some people are going to struggle, some people are going to thrive, I think.
I think it's a shame, though, that they couldn't have a mixture of both. You know, it's
a
bit of reaction
really
time
good.
and a bit of decision making. So you know, maybe you have each class has a sort of spell that does involve your reaction time, but it's only on a cooldown, so it won't happen too often. You know, the boss's health goes down a massive proportion, and they click this sort of 3-minute cooldown that they need to click at that section.
That specific time.
But I think what they're doing here is more of sort of a tried and tested model. So they've had this model back in Burning Crusade, and it worked then, and also a bit the good side of it happened in Cataclysm. You know, there were a lot of bad sides to Cataclysm, but also they want the good side of Cataclysm back, where people would have this decision making. Maybe in future they'd have the reaction times as well. It is a shame. I think they've got rid of that. They've had to get rid of that, in favour of another style. But I don't know. That I'm sure there's probably stuff going on that I just don't know. Probably that just sort of stops you from having that reaction time gameplay as well.
Yeah, it is a shame that they're trying to. Well, I don't know if they're trying to get rid of it, but I understand that they want to get decision making in there because games are about making decisions, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I'm really
it's more
trying to
tactical then, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's all about tactics and mechanics and things like that, and positioning, which is one of the things we're going to be talking about. But yeah, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
But if they do it right, it'll be really good.
So that leads us on sort of to the next sort of topic that they've discussed on Twitter and also in the blog a bit, that a lot of people are concerned that it's going to go back to this Cataclysm problem, that in early Cataclysm the healers just couldn't keep up and it was just stressful for them because they'd use all the spells and instantly be out of mana. And so particularly like Watcher Dev Ian Hazakostas has answered these, saying what they're trying to do is not let it go back to the way it was in Cataclysm, but take the good elements of Cataclysm, that the sort of challenging factor, but at the same time they're going to try and stop those mana concerns by increasing mana regen. So you will run out of mana, but increase it at the same time, and also not have the he said one of the problems was overtuning, so too many boss mechanics that you'd have to combat as well.
Yeah, especially if you've got loads of cooldowns and stuff.
Yeah,
it'd be quite stressful. But I know from healing and Cataclysm, I mean Cataclysm was the first expansion I ever played, and it was stressful. I think there's a fine line between being challenged and just being challenging and it being fun.
Yeah.
For it to be a little bit too challenging and it gets really stressful. And I found it quite stressful.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why people are really worried about it, and it keeps coming up quite a lot, Cataclysm healing.
Yeah.
And that's why people are worrying about it. So I like that they've sort of thought about it and increasing the mana regen. But with it being in mists, I've never really had a problem with running out of mana. So it's going to be very different.
Yeah, so it's just a question of balance. As long as they make it the regen enough for healers to still feel under control and still be able to manage, as long as they're playing their class, half decently.
Well, that's it. It's the feeling of being out of control, isn't it? If you've got no mana, you're going to panic, you're going to be stressed. Whereas if you feel in control of your mana, you've got some good spells in there which are mana efficient, which we're going to be talking about also. Then it will just be challenging and it will be fun, but it's just striking that balance, I think.
Indeed. So they've also talked about one of the other sort of nerfs is taking away absorbs and shields. So particularly this will affect discipline priests who heal by not healing, by putting shields on people. Yeah. And they said they always intended that as being sort of a supplement to heals rather than a replacement. And so and then the discipline priests are obviously worried, so they said, but with that class particularly, there's gonna be a big redesign, but they left it at that. So what I think they should have said is, sorry, we sort of messed up with your class a bit. We're gonna have to, and we realise you're gonna have to learn it all over again. We're not gonna release a tutorial for you. We're not that sorry. But you'll be all right.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bloody shame, actually, really.
Because people get used to and good at that class, don't they?
Yeah, and when they're saying, oh yeah, it's shields aren't a replacement for a good substitute for healing and things like that. Well, why did you put them there in the first place? If that's how people are healing, why have you got so many of them in there? And also, one of the issues is, well, that's sort of the identity of a disciplined priest, isn't it? Like,
exactly,
you're losing part of your identity there. If that's one of the main ways you're going to heal, it completely affects how you're going to feel about your character as well. So,
but at the same time, they are sort of acknowledging that that class has sort of got out of hand, because I know Discipline Priests is way ahead of the others in terms of healing. You know, a lot of guilds are just taking Discipline Priests and ignoring the other healers, so they are putting them back into line, but it is just a shame they can't go, whoops with that class, sorry guys.
Yeah, we'll gradually rein it back in.
Instead it's
but
just
no,
like...
we're just going to revamp the whole thing.
Yeah. Instead it's just like, no, we're constantly improving things. Here's an improvement we're going to make for Warlords. Not really an improvement, more, a correction.
Yeah, let's just tip X over that and start anew. Yeah,
and pretend it didn't happen, people.
Yeah.
Would it improve in everything? Next thing, smart heals. Smart heals, people just, they cast a general heal, then it heals the weakest ones.
Yes.
They don't like it because, it's making it too easy. It's picking the people for you instead of leaving that decision-making element to you.
Well, I like smart heals.
I know you do, because it makes it easier
they're
for you.
easy and they pick the people for you.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But what they did say, they said something a bit silly. They said that they might replace them with these group heals that maybe randomly pick a target to heal the most.
Oh, well, that's very silly. That's overhealing. What's the point in that?
Unless that's stupidly mana efficient.
Oh, yeah, of course,
that's a bit silly to use.
It's very silly.
I'll cast this because it might heal that guy who's nearly dead.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't do randomly pick ones.
I do understand that they're going to nerf smart heals, but it is a shame, because I love just putting, wild growth on there. It does have a bit of a cooldown, but apparently now it's going to take longer, for it, like an extra second and a half, I think they said, for wild growth. And I think their argument for it is they want you to care about your target, who you're actually healing. My argument is, I care about that target, that's why I put wild growth on. I care about them all equally.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm putting it on. Yeah. But yeah, I sort of get it. It's a shame.
You're looking at those bars more.
Yeah, it's a shame.
On top of that, just in general, group heals, they're nerfing them, because you get to a point, later with your gear levels where you can just cast group heals and not, make decisions on which people to actually heal. So I think
is that another priest one as well?
Makes sense. No. Quite a few of the healing classes have group heals. Paladins and stuff.
Yeah.
Your wild growth is a group
Good
heal,
example.
isn't it? So that's one that'll cost more and stuff. So that's what they're gonna nerf. So you'll have to just target the people instead.
Yeah.
So they're the main ones. Also, they're removing high throughput spells like Nourish and I think Holy Light and stuff like that, because they say although it's quite vague what they said. They said although it adds complexity, it doesn't necessarily add depth, which are words that sort of overlap. They're just
it doesn't really make any sense to me, that.
I think what they're basically saying is, although you cast in loads, which might be fun, you're not actually, sort of doing anything. You don't have to make any decisions there. You just have to press one.
Yeah, you sort of know that, you sort of know that there's an order to those, don't you?
Yeah.
You're not having to think about it.
Good and bad though, because pressing one button all the time, at least you're pressing that button. At least you're doing one thing. It's giving you something to do. Whereas if with these changes, you might have to just sort of wait until your next heal, which is more strategic but maybe a bit more boring at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's good and bad. So more decisions, but on the bad side,
less buttons to press.
Yeah, less stuff, less shit that you're doing.
Yeah, which I sort of get, because there are just some stuff that maybe a little bit too complex. Like, especially if everybody's taking a lot of damage, you're just hitting a load of buttons for the sake of it. But yeah, it sort of would be a shame, because it is sort of nice having those extra spells in there that complement
others. You can
others.
always cast,
Yeah.
And the other one is casting instant heals. They don't like the fact that you can just, cast them, and it's just sort of free. They want you to think about where you're positioned. Like, can I cast this here, or am I going to have to move in a second for the next boss mechanic and stuff. So another one that's good and bad. So it's supposed to get you thinking, but at the same time, people are really concerned about this one because instant heals allow you to do things, to multitask with your character. Do multiple things at the same time. So as you move in, you can be healing at the same time, which is pretty cool. And people are saying it removes that sort of dynamic element to the combat. And it's a bit of a step backwards, but then Blizzard would argue that it's a step forward because
you're actually thinking about mechanics and strategically.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you cast on the move?
I do like to cast on the move.
Yeah, I do think it'd make another one where I think maybe you should have something, maybe 10-second cooldown where you can cast an instant cast every now and then, and they're just thinking of saying no, just take it away. I just think, why? It's another element of someone's class that ups the sort of complexity.
Yeah. Well, I normally cast on the move just when the tank's running in and I'm running behind, and I just put my heal over times on there, my hots on there.
Yeah.
And I can just move around when all of the boss mechanics are going on. If you have to move, I can just shove them on then. And yeah, there's more things to do. It's more dynamic, and also it's a lot easier than having to stand there and just wait for your heal to go on.
I know, but they're trying to make it harder, aren't they?
And then you're getting hit then as well.
Yeah.
I think it'd be stressful.
Yeah.
Personally,
yeah,
I'd get quite stressed.
You've got the MMO market in general, I think, moving towards more action-based combat. Everyone's trying to push it further in that direction. I just think this is probably the one I'd like the least, this removal of instant cast. And it's the same for DPS classes and stuff. The range, they're trying to sort of make them more turret classes where you stay in place and cast. We take the recent MMOs. You got WildStar, Guild Wars. I don't know about Star Wars, but they're probably going to be the two successful ones. And then there's Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
They've all got these models of casting on the move and constantly, having to think about different things, moving your character around whilst casting, and then World of Warcraft's deciding to go the other way with it. I think it'll make it quite a bit more clunky, and it's actually doing what they're wanting to do, but for the wrong reasons. They're wanting to go back to Burning Crusade combat, when really they should be doing what they said, taking the best elements of that and moving that forward. But I think all they're doing is going back to that without moving forward. With this move, instant casts. Yeah,
so what are they actually doing? Are they actually getting rid of them, or are they just putting less of them in there?
They're saying that they're basically just remove. Like with the others, they've said, "Oh yeah, we're doing this, but that." But with instant cast, they're just saying no. No, it's just wrong.
That's a shame.
I know.
Because it's a shame that they couldn't just say, yeah, you can cast on the move, but you're just going to have less of an effect on that cast. Like it's just going to be like 50% of what it would be if you were, stationary.
Yeah.
I mean,
stuff like that.
Which people would still be a little miffed about, but at least you have something there. It's a bit of give and take.
Well, I think that's all the healing changes, and on that note, on the worst one, that's I think generally what we think, isn't it? That if it goes well, it could increase the fun in combat. It could make it better, being more challenging. But it is very worrying. They've got a lot of changes here that are making things harder, but not really adding much in the way of new sort of content. It's more
it's
sort
just
of
changing
going back
old
to old
stuff,
ways.
isn't it?
Yeah, so they've got, in terms of going back to the old stuff, they've got all these things like removing instant casts, sort of nerfing the potency of the spells and things like that. But in the way of new things, the only thing they've said is increasing mana regen.
Yeah, which I don't think is sort of, I don't think it's balanced.
Yeah, it's
because
not.
Yeah, because
It's
I'm
not really going to be enough, I don't think.
Because the thing that worries me a little bit is they're saying with multitask target healing spells, they're making them less mana efficient. So obviously you're going to be spending more mana there, but they're also going to be removing some of the some of the other spells like Nourish.
Yeah.
Which are which don't cost much mana at all. Really, they complement other spells. So they're just getting rid of those
and keep you occupied as well.
Yeah. So it's well, what spells are going to be mana efficient?
Yeah.
So you're just making the good spells. I'm going to call them the good spells. You're going to make them less mana efficient, but you're going to make it harder to heal. But you're going to increase the mana regen. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's
yeah.
It's going to work.
Yeah, I think maybe we're just seeing it in terms of we've got one thing that's good coming for us, and then there's a lot of nerfs that they don't really sort of balance. So hopefully, just in terms of, I think the thing that's going to do it is just the boss mechanics, how difficult the bosses are, and also just how the new classes come together as a whole once they've removed button bloat and things like that.
Yeah.
I think we'll only be able to see whether it's a positive change with all these things sort of in the picture
together. Because I think we're just thinking the worst.
Yeah, because it's hard not to when they're just saying we're nerfing this, but you can still have this.
Because we don't know how much they're going to nerf it. Because they could go, they could nerf it slightly, or they could, just do a total revamp. But one thing they did say, because I was quite worried that at the moment we're just trying to get people to 100% and everybody, nobody's really taking that much damage because you can just heal them straight up. Whereas they want you to be sort of 50% and gradually healing up, don't they?
Yeah.
So I was worried because at the moment there can be great spikes where suddenly you just lose health. And what if, you're at 50% and suddenly there's a massive spike, then that's surely going to be a wipe. But one thing they did say was that damage was going to be slower, which would obviously help because damage is slower. So
damage slower, that's another sort of positive.
Yeah, so that's a positive. So then you can heal people up, because that's one thing I was worried about. Because Cataclysm, it didn't seem like that. It seemed like people were still quite spiky.
Yeah.
And it hurt. But I think we just think the worst, and I sort of hope that they get that balance and that it looks worse than it is, that they're not going to nerf him that much.
Yeah.
And that it'll just be, I don't know, more fun to play. I hope it's just not going to be stressful.
Yeah.
That's my main hope.
So, in summary, please make it still be fun, Blizzard.
Yeah.
And, so that's all we have to say on that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.